Welcome to the She Said Privacy, He Said Security podcast. Like any good marriage, we will debate, evaluate, and sometimes quarrel about how privacy and security impact business in the 21st century.
Hi, Jody Daniels here. I'm the founder and CEO of Clover Advisors, a certified women's privacy consultancy. I'm a privacy consultant and a certified informational privacy professional, providing practical privacy advice to overwhelmed companies. And I'm joined by
Jody Daniels' husband, Justin Daniels here. I am passionate about helping companies solve complex cyber and privacy challenges during the life cycle of their business. I do that through identifying the problem and coming up with practical, implementable solutions. I'm a cybersecurity subject matter expert and business attorney.
And this episode is brought to you by Clover Advisors. We help companies to comply with data privacy laws and establish customer trust so that they can grow and nurture integrity. We work with companies in a variety of fields, including technology, SaaS, e-commerce, media agencies, and professional and financial services. In short, we use data privacy to transform the way companies do business. Together, we're creating a future where there is greater trust between companies and consumers. To learn more, visit redcloveradvisors.com. Today, we have a very special guest. Paul Katzoff joins us. He is the CEO of WhiteCanyon Software. And WhiteCanyon is known for their WipeDrive data erasure program for corporate, ITAD, and government organizations, providing data sanitization with high hardware compatibility and ERP integration. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Jody. Thanks, Justin. Thanks for having me here on She Said Privacy, He Said Security, and appreciate the chance to talk with you and your audience. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Well, before we get started, I just have a question for my co-host. You're attired very professionally today.
Oh, well, thank you.
That's it?
Apparently, I don't do it every day.
I just noticed on our podcast, we're usually pretty cash, and that's not the case today.
Well, Paul's a special guest. I decided to dress up for the occasion.
I appreciate
Basically,
that.
if I want that, I need to be a guest on my own podcast.
Exactly. I can send you a booking form and you can sign up.
Okay. Anyway, well, Paul, it's a pleasure to have you this morning. And know you're out there in Utah, which is close to my heart and species. But talk to us a little bit about how you got started in this industry and how you evolved to where you are today as the head honcho.
Sure. It was kind of a long process. Definitely wasn't planned. Back in 07, 08, I had gotten my MBA about 2 years before in 05, and I was looking for a position. And the big stock market collapse happened. All that happened back in 07, 08. So I was looking for anything. And I found a technical support job here at WhiteCanyon Software and took that. I was happy to get a job, happy to be working. And from there, worked up to technical support, did that for, tech support manager, did that for a year or two, and then moved into sales. And I really love that. I love software sales, technology sales, it really fit. And from there, I moved into management. And about 3 years ago, our CEO retired, and they were looking for someone to fill his boots. And they talked with me about it and said, "Hey, we'd love to have you fill that role." And I think, like anyone in my position, I said, "Absolutely, let's do it." So it's been a good 3.5 years here at WhiteCanyon as the CEO, and looking forward to the future where we're headed with data privacy.
Well, in the world of data privacy, which is what I speak about all day long, I'd love to hear more about kind of how what you do fits into this universe of data privacy. When should a company be thinking about data erasure? Is it any particular laws? And I'd kind of love to see also have you seen a bit of an uptick given some of the different laws that companies now have to comply with?
Yeah. Well, first off, it's really changed since 08 when I came on board. As far as the company goes, WhiteCanyon Software, we've been around since 1998. So a good 23 years of providing our WipeDrive tool. And it started out as just a little 3.5-inch floppy diskette. The Air Force approved it, so it went to every Air Force base throughout the world back in the early 2000s. And from there, we kind of grew into the commercial market. And like you mentioned, the commercial side or the enterprise side started realizing, hey, when these IT assets leave our facility, we need to erase them, or we need to make sure that we have proof that all the data is gone. And so from about 2012, 2013 on, it kind of became very important, kind of growing matter. And then you had GDPR come out, which really pushed that. The HIPAA privacy laws also kind of pushed that initiative as well. And lately, the California data privacy law has been the latest that has kind of pushed corporations to say, hey, we have all these IT assets. We used to just store these drives in the basement, donate them to a charity or sell them or whatever you did with them or smash them. But that data is at risk. That whole time it's just sitting there or when it leaves our facility. So let's incorporate an erasure tool. Let's erase all that data before it can be exposed or we're vulnerable at it. And then let's go from there.
Well, thank you for sharing. Really, I mean, from a privacy point of view, I certainly see more companies paying attention to the data that they have. We're so focused on the collection, the use, and the sharing, but the end piece, sort of its resting state, is important to be paying attention to what happens all the way at the end.
Yeah, I think it's funny that you stated it that way. I would have asked Paul the same question. Said, Paul, nowadays, data is what? If we collect, use it, and store it, it now becomes what? Potentially a
liability.
Yay!
Do I get money?
Huh?
Do I get money? Our daughter always asks if she does something, she gets money. Do I get money?
Well, discuss it with my representative. But my point is, Paul, from your perspective, the liability that now is created by all this data that's either stored or somewhere else, I assume that is a big selling point as to how your company fits into helping companies manage what is now the single biggest asset, but also potential liability in case the ransomware man comes calling.
Yeah, the ransomware man or the data breach, and you've lost X number of PHI, private health information files or data. All of a sudden, your company now has a financial and legal responsibility, and that's costly on their side. So yeah, we fit in that data erasure realm of either end of life or reallocating assets. And where we've kind of wanted to make ourselves more valuable to our clients is how we're deployed. We could be pushed out remotely. We could be pushed out to anywhere in the globe, whatever data or data bearing device you have, we can erase that. We have mobile phone erasure, you name it, mass volume erasure with our Pixie Network boot. We have all these different capabilities. So on the corporate side, you can buy one tool and use it throughout your architecture and be headache free.
So speaking on that point, can you talk to us a little bit more about, how the erasure works, but also does it really erase everything irrevocably? Nothing more, what they say on the internet is forever.
You know how often we get that question? It's because data erasure kind of has a bad name to it. It comes from a bunch of software tools that weren't certified, weren't tested, and were out there making claims that weren't actual and weren't true. And so we actually have to fight this all the time with IT managers, where they call us up and say, hey, I'd rather drill this, or I'd rather crush it, or if it's not an SSD, to gauss it. And that's $50 to $80 per device that you're just destroying. Also, in the circular economy, that's not going back in to be resold or reused, and it's being shredded or destroyed, hopefully recycled as much as possible, and the rest goes into landfill or as e-waste. So there's really a high need for data erasure as far as kind of keeping these items outside of landfills and the garbage disposal and that side of area. But also at the same time, there's this trust issue. And so what we've done on our side is we've gotten common criteria certification here in the US. We've gotten NCSC out in the UK, a DISA certification. And pretty much what these standards mean is someone's gone, they've tested our software on a host of devices. They've ensured that all the data is gone, but also you can trust us on any data-bearing device that's out there as well. And a good note on that, to kind of make people feel even more confident, is the IT asset disposition industry, the ITADs, for their certifications, they're required to test 1% of their drives. So they're running a verification on our WipeDrive tool on 100 to 200 devices a month per ITAD. So these are being forensically examined, tested, making sure there's no data there. So there's a whole industry that's, verifying and certifying that our product does what it says it does. Pretty much.
I love the focus on recycling. As someone else knows, I'm a huge fan of recycling, and I'm the person who takes it out of the garbage and rinses it and puts it back in the recycling pile when some people, I don't know who, maybe sitting next to me, named Justin, don't always recycle. Now, bringing the idea of recycling, though, it's really now a big part of the sustainability of a company, and ESG and social responsibility is an element that customers are now focused on in companies. So what we're talking about is a very internal part, but it really can support an overall company's social responsibility plan. Can you share a little bit? A company probably sends you these devices, they're getting wiped. What happens? Maybe kind of walk us through the process, almost like the life cycle of I'm a device and I need to be erased, and what happens to me?
Sure. So we don't.
I'm a device now to be recycled.
So we don't actually touch the devices. We just provide the software tool to any of our clients so they can boot it up and run at their location or on their systems wherever they are. And it really depends on how they want to get it done. As far as the software does itself, it accesses each sector, each platter, each byte, each bit, and overwrites it with random data or whatever information they'd like to overwrite it with. So that process is kind of set forward for any device. And then, like I said earlier, we can erase mass devices at one time. So some corporations are, processing 10,000 systems a year. We can set up a workbench and they can be running 100, 200 wipes simultaneously on those workbenches. So that makes it easy on their side. You don't have tech sitting there booting off USB 500 times a day and trying to get their log reports and where these audit trails go to, where do you put the certificate of destruction? All that's kind of managed by our system and our platform so that you don't have to worry about it. It's not a headache.
Excellent. Even better. Reducing the shipping, reducing carbon emissions. I love it. Environmentally friendly.
Can we send you there so we can have erased for Jody 3.0 software to be placed?
No.
Where I can do no wrong?
No.
All right. Well, on to the next topic. So, Paul, can you talk a little bit about, based on what you're seeing with your part of the industry, is what do you think the next evolution is in the data erasure protection regime, given Virginia is now not only for lovers, but also for data privacy and other laws that are coming out?
Not a fan of that state slogan.
Well, first off, I like that all the states are moving towards more data privacy laws and breach notifications, which is a nice kind of foundation, nice base. You have the federal government; they have a federal data privacy law in committee, so that's being discussed. The word on the street is it's only going to be as tough as a California data privacy law. So there's not going to be any financial penalties unless you delay your breach notifications. It's not going to be like GDPR, which is kind of a shame. Like, personally, as a consumer, and not on the business side, but as a consumer, I like the idea that corporations have a financial penalty if they lose my data or there's a breach or something like that. It makes me feel like that corporation is going to work harder to protect my information. We're not there yet. I hope in 5 years or a decade that comes out and is added to it. But right now, it's just merely kind of that basic, let you know that your data has been taken or there's a breach. And then also you have the right to be forgotten, which is nice.
Excuse me. What size company needs to pay attention to this? I feel like I talk to a lot of small companies, and privacy and security is, it's overwhelming. It's a challenge. There's resource constraints, whether it be cost and people. Is this just a big company problem, or what should the smaller companies also be thinking about?
Great question. So for the small companies, if you're regulated by HIPAA, if you're a dentist's office or a doctor's office, you already know that you need to control and maintain your PHI. So they need to worry about it. The large corporations have been worrying about this for about 5 or 10 years on their side. The medium and small are kind of the ones that are coming to the realization that their data can be attacked or that they're vulnerable if they aren't too careful. So it's headed that way. I don't think, due to how much they're trying to balance and do themselves, I don't think the small corporations and medium are really going to get to it for a while. But I think what will happen is the MSPs, the managed service providers, and others that provide, third-party services to these small companies will start incorporating or do incorporate Erasure in their policies. And that'll kind of cover that small segment. It is important to them, but I don't think it's risen to that priority just yet.
Thank you.
Funny, when we were talking about the national privacy and security law, data is really
Well, for sure. And we're a global economy, and
I know.
data doesn't really stop and give its passport to the airplane people and,
Yes.
get on the airplane and go to the next country. It just kind of comes.
Other government privacy, how that relates.
We're not going down that path.
I know. Not allowed. So, Paul, kind of taking us into more of a personal realm, given your extensive experience in the industry, is what is your best personal cyber tip for our audience?
Ooh, I like unique passwords. I think those are the ones where, as a home user, that's like the biggest headache. So my recommendation is for your password, do a number, do the first couple letters of the domain, choose 3 or 4 letters or 5 of whatever domain it is, choose a unique word and a special character, and also capitalize one of them. What's nice there is if your passwords get out, you'll have unique passwords for every website, and it'll be difficult for them with an automation tool to kind of crack that. But on your side, it kind of protects you as far as your password goes. And it's easier to remember, I guess.
One of the things we had talked about kind of pre-show was protecting kids' data. And I'd love to have an extension to sort of the best personal cyber tip for all of the parent listeners out there. What should they also be considering when it comes to their kids' devices?
Yeah. So, with these kids, with everyone working, the schools going remote and all the children being assigned devices, the biggest risk that's coming up, and it kind of happened this last summer, is that all these devices are going to get turned back in and they have to go back out 3 months later. And your local school district has 3 or 4 IT employees to erase and securely process all these devices. The risk there is they don't do it properly, they don't do it all. Your first grader, second grader hops on their little Google Chromebook or whatever they have, and the senior or junior that had it the year before has loads of pictures and videos and things like that they could open up and click through or find. So on the data security side for schools and things like that, we just recommend the Google Power Wash or WipeDrive to erase your devices. Let's get this data clean. And as a parent, you should definitely be asking your local school, are you cleaning these devices before they come to me or to my child? Do we have to clean them before I give them to my child? What do you want us to do to kind of ensure that there's no data on that device when it comes into the house?
Yeah, that is a really important tip that I think every parent needs to hear, and a really excellent point that I think is likely overlooked by a lot of schools. So thank you so much for sharing. Really important.
And we always like to end with a fun question, which is, outside of your CEOing and helping with the cyber industry and the fact you live in Utah and out west, what do you like to do for fun?
My latest passion has been mountain biking with these new e-bikes.
Ah, you just made someone's day.
Yes. If you have not ridden an e-bike, I'm not in the greatest shape, but I think that's where e-bikes really come in. But you get this full suspension e-bike, and I can power up hills as if I'm a first grader, and I love it. It is, you can go up and down. It's fun. If you ever get a chance, take one of those out. It just changes the paradigm of mountain biking. It does completely.
We'll just leave the mountain biking to you. I'm going to stick to the road bike on a nice, actually not the road, like on a trail, nice paved trail. You can give me some hills, but I need a paved trail. You can take the crazy mountain biking.
See, Paul,
you can go to Utah and you can visit Paul, and the two of you can go mountain biking.
Yeah, Paul, if you could just erase the software in her head now and we could boot it up with Jody 3.0 Adventure Edition, we'd have something here.
My devs brought that up with, I think, Elon Musk. They're doing some kind of connections to your brain. And then he brought up, like, do we need to do a white brain tool? What's next? What's coming up? So anyway.
Like the way he's thinking.
That'll be a whole different podcast episode. Well,
Yes.
Paul, thank you so much for joining us. Where can people connect with you and learn more?
Yeah, absolutely. Go to our website at whitecanyon.com. You can also reach out to me on Twitter at Paul Katzoff. Happy to answer your questions, take you through anything you need on your side, discuss data security, data erasure, whatever you guys would like to do. Reach out to us. We'd be happy to help.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for joining.
Yep. Thanks, Justin. Thanks, Jody. Thanks for having me on She Said Privacy, He Said Security podcast. And thanks to your audience members for listening.
Thanks for listening to the She Said Privacy, He Said Security podcast. If you haven't already, be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes and check us out on LinkedIn. See you next time.